Thanks for the ride, lady.
What's up, YouTube? This is your boy John from the Jersey Shore, and I am back with you today to give you my review of the 1987 film Creepshow 2. If you're already a subscriber to my channel, welcome back. It's good to see you guys again. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, go ahead, click that subscribe button now and get that out of the way. Creepshow 2 was written by Stephen King and George Romero, and it was directed by Michael Gornick. Creepshow 2 is a film that is comprised of 3 short stories, all from the legendary horror minds of Stephen King and George A. Romero. Kicking things off, our first story is called Old Chief Woodenhead. That name refers to a wooden Indian that stands out front of a general store. The general store is owned and operated by a man and a woman. They're an elderly couple. This place is getting ready to get robbed. So in walks 3 thugs one day. Well, I should say one thug. He's an Indian dude, real long black hair. For some reason he has no shirt on, but he's wearing a jean jacket. He comes in there to rob the place. He's got his 2 flunkies with him who really don't do anything. They're just there. It's almost like they're just his 2 slaves or his 2 punks that he just tells what to do, and for whatever reason they listen. So this dude comes in here to rob this place. There's not a whole lot of money to rob or to be had, but he takes what money that they do have. He's got a shotgun up to the wife. He's telling the man, leave me alone, back off, give me what you got, so on and so forth. He winds up shooting this woman. After he shoots this woman, her husband starts to approach, and he shoots him too. After he shoots the old couple, he walks out front with his shotgun and starts blowing the windows out, saying that, life's getting ready to change. No more eating dust for a living.
No more of this bullshit, man. No more eating dust for a living. There ain't no dust in Hollywood, man.
He shoots him. They get in the car and drive away. They're headed to Hollywood. And actually, they're heading to Hollywood that night. And after he shoots the old wooden Indian, you see that the old wooden Indian starts to move. He leans down. There was some paint spilled. He picks up some red paint and spreads war paint on his cheek. And then he just starts to howl. It's nonsense. So one of the flunkies later that evening is sitting in his chair watching TV, having a beer, and a couple arrows come flying through his window and take him out. So next you see flunky number 2. He's getting ready to go get in his car to go pick his buddies up so that they can take off for Hollywood. When he goes out to his garage, he sees that his car has been destroyed. And then you see the silhouette or the shadow of the Indian come walking up behind him with his axe. You see him go down, you see blood splatter up on the wall. So now that leaves us with the final guy. The one who actually shot the old man and the old lady. You see him in his house, and he sees something in the mirror behind him. He turns around and lets off a shot, and you see that the old wooden Indian is standing in his doorway. So this guy runs into the bathroom. He's trying to get ready to escape through the window when all of a sudden the Indian breaks through the wall, grabs him by his hair. Yeah, I totally forgot about this guy and his hair. He says it took him 9 years to grow this hair. He's got a whole Samson complex going on. He thinks his hair gives him power, and he thinks if he loses his hair, he'll get weaker. So while he's trying to make his way out the window, the Indian breaks through the wall, grabs him by his hair, pulls him through the wall, and scalps him. It's a little bit of justice for the old man and his wife. Our second story in the movie is called The Raft. You got 2 guys and 2 girls. They're in their Camaro. They go park the car. They jump in the water and they're swimming out to a raft. They're going to go out there. They got some weed with them. Going to go get high and spend the day sitting on this raft. Bad move. So once the 2 guys are up on the raft, the smaller of the 2 dudes, who actually is the star of this story, he sees a little bit off in the distance that there's something out there floating in the water. It's actually got a hold of a bird and it's killing this bird. So after he realizes what's going on there, he turns around and tells the girls, hurry up, swim faster, get out of the water.
Laverne, Rachel, swim!
Come on!
So once they're up out of the water, he's explaining to them, I don't know what that is, but one of the other dude, he thinks it's an oil slick. He said this is clearly not an oil slick. Oil slicks look like an accident. This thing looks like it's here on purpose. So one of the two girls gets the brilliant idea to stick her hand down near whatever this is floating in the water, and it grabs her by the hand, pulls her in the water, completely engulfs her immediately. That's 1 down, 3 to go. Next up, we got the big jock-looking dude who's out there. He's in a yellow Speedo. It's like a banana hammock. It's like the true definition of what a banana hammock is. He's standing out there, and this thing actually comes through the bottom of the raft and grabs a hold of his foot. It pulls him straight down through a hole. You see his leg break. It's actually pretty badass. It pulls him down, 2 down, 2 to go. Next thing you see is these two people. There's one girl left and one guy left. They're both falling asleep. You get through the night. The next morning they show him, and he's sitting on the ground. He's holding her. She's asleep. He's not wide awake, but he's awake. And he starts to lay her down on the raft. He starts to lift up her shirt. He's doing things that he shouldn't be doing. And right when he's starting to get all touchy-feely with this chick, she turns her head over, and this thing has come up through the raft, and it's all down the side of her face. It starts to engulf her, and it pulls her into the water. He sees this, and he jumps off the raft and starts making a break for the beach. So he actually does make it to the beach. He's right at the edge of the water, and he yells out, "I beat you!" It doesn't end well.
I beat you!
Our third and final story is called The Hitchhiker, and I have no doubt that this is the most well-known story in this movie. Our story starts off with this woman. She's been out cheating on her husband. She's got a John. She's paying this guy for sex, and she realizes that this guy's digital alarm clock did not go off. It's 11:15, and she's got to get out of here before her husband gets home and wonders where she is. So she gets out of this place. She's driving down the road like a maniac, trying to beat the time, beat the clock more or less. I think she said she had to get 20 miles in 7 minutes, which is virtually impossible. So while she's driving down the road, she's trying to come up with what kind of story she can conjure up and throw at her husband, hoping that it sticks. She's smoking a cigarette, and she drops the cigarette. Once the cigarette goes down, she starts talking to herself about how much the damage is going to cost her. She's trying to put this out, and she loses control of her Mercedes. It starts swerving around the road, and you see a hitchhiker flash in front of her eyes, and she runs him right over. Stammering over my words. I forgot how to talk. So after a couple seconds, she gathers herself, and she's realizing the situation that she is in. She has been out cheating on her husband. She's trying to rush home, and she just ran somebody over. So she sees lights coming from behind her, and she sees a truck coming in front of her, and she decides to turn off her lights and make a break for it. As she's driving down the road, she's trying to discuss, and she's trying to come to the realization of whether she can or cannot live with this.
I always turn myself in if I find I can't live with it.
And she decides, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go home, and if I decide that I can't live with this, I can always turn myself in later. So once she decides, it seems that she's starting to come to a little bit of peace with this decision. I don't know exactly that I would call it, coming to peace with it. She passes by what she thinks is the hitchhiker that she just hit. So she stops, she looks back, and this dude, it's him. He's all busted up and bloody, and he's coming up running behind her. She turns back around, and he's not there anymore. She sits there for a couple of seconds and starts to gather herself, and all of a sudden, up to her window comes the hitchhiker. He's all busted up and bleeding, and he says, "Thanks for the ride, lady."
How you doing, lady? Thanks. Thanks for the ride.
She's losing it. She's driving down the street. She's got this guy up on the roof of her car, and she gets him off of the car. She drives through the woods. And now, at this point, she's just losing it. She gets the guy off the car. She drives back up on the highway. She's driving down the road. This guy's back up. He starts coming up from the hood of her car. He's been on the driver's side door. He's been up at the sunroof. He's coming up from the front of the car. So this lady eventually drives down in the woods and purposefully drives into a tree to smash this guy to get him out of here. She's completely freaking out. So she's shot. She's got a gun in her glove compartment. She shoots the guy. She shoots him through the hand. She shoots him in the face. She shoots him in the head. She shoots him in the chest. This guy just won't go away. So eventually she makes it back home. Her car has been absolutely annihilated by running into trees and driving through the woods. This guy has broken off mirrors. The bumper of her car is gone. She gets home, opens the door, and now the guy, his face at this point is basically hamburger meat. It's unrecognizable as even being a human face. It's like a pile of meat with a tongue sticking out of the end of it, and he eventually kills her. So her husband eventually comes home, sees her in the car, opens up the door, and she's dead in the front seat of her car.
Penny!
On a little bit of a side note, after she hit this hitchhiker earlier in the movie and she drove away, the headlights that she saw coming was actually her husband. And the Mack truck that passed her when she was trying to run away was actually being driven by Stephen King. I thought this movie was really, really cool. I think I was like a junior in high school when this movie came out. I recorded it on a VCR and used to watch this movie at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, I'm sure. I just absolutely adored this movie when I was in high school. The thanks for the hitchhiker scene, the third act of this movie, just blew me away. I loved it. I gravitated towards the gore of the crate in the first Creepshow movie, and I definitely gravitated towards the gore in the hitchhiker in this Creepshow movie. Absolutely loved it. I think that this is a legendary movie. It's also written by Stephen King with the help of George Romero this time. Romero directed the first movie, but he didn't direct this movie. However, he did help write this movie with Stephen King, and you can tell it's just a quality product. It's very well made. It's just everything about this movie is really, really cool. The glaring difference is there is animation in this movie, where in the first movie you had a prologue and an epilogue that was live action. It actually was actors carrying the story along. This movie, it's all animation. It's kind of dated animation as well. You didn't see a whole lot of this type of animation years after this. The animation of today is completely different than this. It actually reminds me of the old dirty cartoon called Fritz the Cat, if anybody out there has ever seen that movie. This animation reminded me directly of that. And it also kind of reminds me of the animation in the movie Heavy Metal, if anybody's ever seen that movie. I don't know if I have necessarily a favorite of these three stories. There are certain things that I liked about all three of these stories. I thought that the gore that was in the raft, the killing in the raft, was pretty grisly. It was pretty awesome. I love the story of Old Chief Woodenhead, the first story. I thought that Indian looked amazing. Just the Indian himself, the effects, and and remember, they're all practical effects. They're not CGI. The practical effects of that Indian were outstanding. I thought he looked amazing. Like I said, the deaths in the raft were awesome, and the hitchhiker was just it was kind of crazy, but it was fun crazy. The line "Thanks for the ride, lady" is kind of legendary in the horror genre. I think everybody who was a horror movie fan of that time knows exactly what that is when they hear it, and I know that I've heard that line several times. Just out in real life, I've heard people say "Thanks for the ride, lady," just tongue-in-cheek kind of nod to Creepshow 2. I really enjoyed Creepshow 2. I would go as far as to say I love Creepshow 2. I couldn't even imagine how many times I've seen this movie. I've saw it multiple times when I was younger. This is actually the first time I've gone back and watched it in quite a number of years. Like I said, I love the movie. I don't like it as much as I did the first movie, but I still love this movie. I think it falls a little bit short of the original Creepshow, but I still think that this is